funniest thing that I see is guys doing is they'll run a $3,000-$4,000 rig, but they don't throw a nice scope on it. They'll throw a cheap, Arkin, and not talking shit to Arkin. I like Arkin, but if you're running a Voodoo and you're throwing an Arkin there, like why?
Yeah.
Like Will?
I would spend. I would throw, and to be fair, Will's getting a new scope.
I know. I was giving him a hard time about it at the last match, and he knew.
Yeah,
So.
he got one of those 40% off certs from Maven, and I know
Oh,
he
there
was
you go.
talking about looking into one of those. So, and they make some good stuff too.
Maven
So
makes nice glass. I like. Yeah.
their glass is very nice. I've seen their spotting scopes and binos. I've never seen one of their scopes, so I'm very curious to see how that is, because like I love my Razor, and I love the now with the new turrets on them, it's great. But like Athlon makes good stuff too, but I feel like Athlon glass, their Chronos is good glass, but well, take the back. Their Chronos is pretty good glass, and they make really good binos too. I really like Athlon binos. Their glass and their binos are really nice.
Yeah.
But you get some companies that just will put out like Arkin. They put on amazing features, but they don't focus on their glass, which I get it, and that's how they get their costs down and stuff like that. So, but
they should definitely do like a higher end one that has the good glass.
They do have a higher one. They have a Japanese Arkin, and it's still not nice.
Really?
I mean, the features are good, and the glass is good, but it's nothing compared to the Razor, the Collis, the Athlon Chronos. It's not even the same ballpark, in my opinion. But I don't know.
They're not at the same price point either, though.
Exactly, and that's exactly why. That's exactly why.
Yeah.
I mean, you're paying $1,000 less minimum.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair.
And the Chronos is
I think that EP5 or whatever, that Arkin
that's
with
what
Japanese
I have,
glass. Yeah, I mean that's still like $500-$600. That's still less than a Strike Eagle.
True. No, very true.
Yeah.
But I think the Strike Eagle, as it should be, the Strike Eagle's better. I've shot them both.
I've shot them both too. I like the Arkin a lot. I still like the mechanical features of a Strike Eagle better. And I also like the fact, even with the zero stop limits you to 2 revs, that's fine. The fact the Arkin reticle I think is terrible. And the Strike Eagle reticle I love. You have 2/10 increments now on them on the top, and then you have a half mil, and then a full mil, and then half mil, full mil, half mil, all across the bottom, bottom, middle, and then top. Yep. You have the 2/10. So, and that's what the Razor has, and it just makes life so nice to be able to look down a scope, and you have 2/10 increments for 22s. I mean, that's very helpful.
Yeah, it's huge.
So.
I noticed that too, switching from the classic Diamondback Tactical to that Strike Eagle. I mean, the reticles are very similar from the 2C to the 7C from Vortex, but I definitely like the EBR 7C that's in the Strike Eagle, because that's actually the same one that's in my hunting rifle. It's a PST Gen 2 with that EBR 7C, and I absolutely love that frickin' reticle. It's so nice to have.
You said 7D or 7C?
7C.
C, yeah. The Razor has the 7D, which I honestly can't tell you the difference. They look really similar.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's just... Strike Eagle's illuminated, right? Yep, I have Strike Eagle. That's illuminated. I'm trying to think what really the difference is.
I think that's like thickness of the hash marks and some of that stuff too, because that Razor is a 6-36. You're so zoomed in. So I think there's some of that too.
That's true. I'm looking at it right here, and it shows the Razor goes all the way out to 10 mils and of wind, and the Strike Eagle only goes to 8. But up and down, the top of the Strike Eagle goes to 10, the bottom goes to 10. And in the Razor, it goes down to 10, but only up to 6, which you really shouldn't have to be holding under to 6 ever. I don't know when you'd ever do that.
That's fair.
But yeah, 6 mils holding under your zero would have to be quite far.
Yeah.
So But all right, so to introduce everyone real quick, I got Matt Greenfield and Anthony. Good luck with your last name, Anthony. I
Kuchynka.
still cannot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Only been,
Kuchynka, whatever you
like
want.
a year and 2 months, but no big deal.
I will intentionally never remember your last name and just say Anthony. Don't know your last name because I cannot pronounce it.
That's
So
fair.
I apologize.
I mean, you're
And
not
I'm
the
Shane
only one.
Scott. So basically, this debrief is going to be a little different because I didn't shoot this match. I match directed this match. But these two guys did, Matt Greenfield and Anthony. You guys were in squad 1, so you guys were technically in the highest ranking squad. There was some other higher ranked people, but they had to be put in other squads with either kids or family. So
Right.
you guys were kind of in the single squad. How was that? How was it being shooting a match where you didn't get to pick who you got a squad with? It's kind of the first time we've done that.
I actually enjoyed it a lot. I mean, it forced you to shoot with other people and kind of talk and meet new people. I mean, it was pretty cool. I mean, Nick Gebhardt was cool, and so was Matt, or not Matt, Mark, and both.
Wow! You don't like Matt? Wow! Way to go! All right,
well,
say it to his face, but
I was thinking about the other Marks, the Marks.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've shot with Matt before, so it wasn't like shooting with new people. I mean, I've shot with him before, so. But shooting with people who, I mean, are in a totally different class of shooter is definitely interesting too. I mean, me and Matt definitely had the cheapest setups by far. I'm pretty sure everybody's optics was as much as our setups, but is what it is.
To put in perspective, Nicholas Gebhardt, his son, shot the match, and he was using a 1022 with the ZCO optic. So just right there, I think by far, you guys were in that group, but you guys were definitely the lowest funded, or not funded, but lowest amount of money spent in your setup in that group.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not even a question.
It certainly changed the game a little bit. I mean, I've been doing this, even less than Anthony has. So it was a little bit intimidating at first, really, to walk up at that match. That was definitely the biggest match I've ever shot. The level of shooter on average was better. And then the guys that we were squatted with were very good shooters, very good gear. I've never even seen a ZCO in person.
Neither have
holy
I.
Shnikes, that's a $3,500
Did you guys
piece
get a
of
look
glass.
through them?
No, I didn't end up looking through either of them. But I've heard amazing things.
Nicholas Gebhardt keeps trying to get me to look through it. I'm like, dude, I can't do that. I just got my razor. I can't buy another scope. I can't.
I don't
do
want
it
to know how good it is.
Yeah.
Can't afford it either way.
Right.
So but it was fun. It was really fun to shoot with some really good shooters too. I mean, there's that part of it that was at first a little intimidating, and then you settle in and you're like, I mean, Mark dropped some shots, and they
on the
you can learn something from these guys. It took a little while, but he still does. They're all human.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Do you think? I mean, it was a good learning experience being in a squad like that, where
absolutely.
You guys are both pretty good shooters, but putting you with some of the highest in the whole series. I mean, how was that?
It was different. I mean, like I said, they're just like a whole nother class of shooter. I mean, like Pulver, he shoots how many matches every year? I mean,
a lot,
a ton of both center fire and rim fire. So I mean, it was definitely intimidating at first. Like the first couple stages, everybody was just not really saying a whole lot, feeling each other out. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're all the alphas, so we kind of gotta, act like that." And then finally, I think it was actually after Pulver dropped his first shot, everybody kind of started to calm down and like actually talk to each other and stuff. And I think it was Mark Flotmeyer who actually said, "Oh, so he is human." But it was definitely a different experience, and I enjoyed it. I learned quite a bit. I mean, just listening to the two Marks and Nick talk, and not really saying a whole lot because I don't shoot near as much as any of those three, but just kind of listening to them talk was very informative about a lot of different stuff in the shooting world.
What do you think about that, Matt? Do you think you agree on that, or?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'm not like a um, super competitive shooter or any of that stuff. Um, and I'm not a real competitive athlete, but I did race motorcycles a little bit in high school. And sometimes you'd get to be on track on a practice day with pro level riders. And that's exactly what it reminded me. I was like, oh, it's back to being on track with the pros. And they may beat you pretty bad. I think I finished like 13th overall on that match. And, both Marks and Nick, were well ahead of me. But at the same time, just watch the way they run their gears, what they would dial for, what they would hold for. Um, I dial for absolutely everything. If I got to change targets and it's 2 more tenths, I dial 2 more tenths. And some of that's left over from running a second focal plane optic and things like that. Um, so just continuing to watch good shooters, the way they shoot, when they run a pump pillow, when they don't, and all those sort of things. And then occasionally on a stage, you'd be able to pick up a couple of shots on some of these guys, and that's fun, and that tells you, well, it's not just the rifle, it's not just the gear. Um, the shooter matters, and guys make mistakes, and um, yeah, it was fun.
So, with that being said, in a squad like that, obviously they had a lot more experience than both you guys did. But do you think now, seeing their gear, is that going to change your guys' setups at all? I mean, I know, Anthony, that changed yours a little bit, but also you won some stuff off the table.
Yeah.
Matt, do you think you're going to swap some stuff out, or you think you're just going to keep going what you had?
Maybe a little, but not very much, actually. Continue to fine tune some stuff. Ironically, I got a bipod off the prize table, basically, or $300 cert for an AccuTac, and those guys didn't use their bipods very much at all. They run the bag as much as they can, it seemed like, and I thought that was interesting. But they certainly didn't leave it attached. That was the big thing that I said. All right, I'm not going to leave a bipod on here if I don't if I'm not going to use it. There's no point in having it on the rifle and a few little things like that. So
That is another thing I've taken away from matches. It's the same exact thing. Is a lot of guys will only use a bipod if they for sure can get kind of like a tripod setup where like bipod in the front, rear bag in the back. If they can't build that position on every single part of the props or like majority of the props they're using on that stage, they'll just run a bag.
yeah.
And limit the amount of gear you're running. And that's something we kind of talked about, Matt, while we are waiting for Anthony to join the call was, I feel like now with me collecting all this gear, now I'm starting to realize I have like too much gear and I need to start like getting back to the simplistic part of it and getting down to just bare minimum. What do I need? Don't overdo it. And I can definitely see how shooting with those guys, you saw a lot of those guys might have nice gear, but they're running very little gear and try to streamline what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, Anthony, I know you changed some stuff up. Do you think you're going to change anything else up besides the scope? I know you got rings and scope, but anything else you think you're going to change up, or you think you're going to stick with that for another little while?
I'm probably going to end up adding a pump pillow because I don't have one and I've honestly never used one, but watching all three of those guys, Nick and both of the Marks, run those and very effectively run those. I mean, I'm probably going to end up getting one and learning how to use it and all that kind of stuff because definitely seems like it would help in some of those situations where I wasn't quite as steady, where they definitely had no issues compared to me. But
That is a big one. Pump pillows I've started to use recently. Actually, a really good thing that a lot of people didn't pull off the table till kind of like the second round, was the 50% off WeBad cert. A lot of people overlooked that.
right,
A lot of people just went and took the bags off the table. But that WeBad cert was not just for one thing. That was for a whole purchase of WeBad, 50% off. So Devin, my girlfriend, actually ended up pulling that away, and she ordered like a tater tot, a pump pillow, a plate bag, like a stock pad. I mean, she got 50% off her whole order, and I mean, that's worth it. I mean, a pump pill is like hundred plus bucks, $100, I think, and I mean, for $50, I mean, she got a nice little setup that she needed. Now she has her own set of gear, and yeah, I mean that was a really nice cert. I'm surprised a lot of people didn't really. I think a lot of people looked at it and goes, "off 50% off of one thing," and kind of just went past it, but it was for a whole purchase, and yeah, that was a cool one to grab. So
Yeah, and I'd piggyback on that. Actually, my wife stitches up all my bags, and she made me a pump pillow this week. So I haven't shot off it yet. Just whipped that out on Monday or Tuesday this week. But yeah, so that was definitely another thing. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to learn how to run one of these because there was a few positions. I think the snake charmer was the one um, that I built a really poor position on the snake charmer on, and I did fairly poorly on that one comparatively to the rest of our group. I think I shot 6 or 7 out of 10 on that, and I definitely, and everybody else was shot basically eights, nines, and tens. So
yeah, that building a steady position, especially with a pump pillow. I mean, a lot of people in our shooting group will like kind of pick fun at me because I always wear my pump pillow even on the stage. I'm not using it, and it's because it comes in handy sometimes. Like if I get behind a position and realize, oh shoot, my rear bag isn't tall enough here. I'm just not feeling steady, and let's say I wasn't going to use the pump pillow like tucking my arm in and get in that type of steady position. I can actually swing that pump pillow around the front side and use it as a rear support because there's enough cushion in it. I mean, I could use that thing for a tall rear support. I've used it on tons of stages just to, tuck my arm in to build a rear support. I've used it for prone. I mean, you can do a lot with that pump pillow. And yeah, it's basically like having a backpack. I mean, you have a backpack right there at all times to squish in and kind of cuddle up. So it helps a lot.
I think it is a bit of a security blanket for you, though. I've seen you drive with a pump pillow.
Gosh. All right, so real quick, let's break down the match real quick. What I guess I don't know if you guys want to go in order, or do you guys? What was your favorite stage? What was your worst stage? Pros and cons of any stages? We can start with you, Matt.
I think my favorite stages were the first stage with the tumbler blocks, and then I think the bed stage where it was like swinging from the chains. Just because those were really rough on Anthony, and if I can kick Anthony's butt, then it makes me feel good.
That's entirely fair. I did horrible on that stage.
Anthony, what about you? Your favorite stage?
My favorite stage was actually the third one, where you were on the tank trap. I had a lot of fun with that one. I actually ended up doing pretty well on it. I got 12 out of 15 hits. I missed all 3 shots on the 4th target. I don't know what the heck happened, but I missed all of them. But I actually ended up doing pretty good on that one. And then the one I liked the least was probably the stair one, just because, I mean, it was kind of one of those where you couldn't really, I mean, you never knew what you were going to get.
Stage 1?
Yeah, stage 1.
Yeah.
And that one was mainly because, like, anybody could have gotten anything, and there was no real rhyme or reason to it. So, like, Mark Pulver, he ended up drawing, I think, 3 out of the 4 closest targets. And I ended up with the second longest target, the third longest target, and the closest target. So it was kind of like, I mean, that one, I feel like it should have been more change up of the order you shoot instead of the targets that you shoot. Everybody should have shot all the same targets, but
that was the consensus that I heard from pretty much everyone back. Is the only stage that people had a big problem with, or not a big problem, but they didn't like, was stage 1, and not because of the design. The stage was a good stage. It was the fact that instead of doing 10 targets, and even if it was 10 targets, what I think could have been done differently is whatever one you pulled, that's the one you had to shoot. You had to run down, flip it, run back up, shoot that target once, go back down. I mean, that would have been a lot of up and down, but I mean, maybe even you could have increased the time limit or something on that stage, or even cut it in half, do 2 shots on each, whatever one you flip over, 1 through 5, and everyone still had to shoot 1 through 5. Just, I see you're saying like the whole random chance, some people didn't like because it's not fair for everyone. But yeah, I can see.
Well, and then, like, I was talking to Jake Salyer about it too afterwards, and he ended up drawing the furthest target, the third furthest target, and like one of the further of the close ones. So I mean, he didn't have a shot under like 90 yards on that stage, whereas Mark Pulver didn't have a shot over 90 yards on that stage. I mean, it just kind of,
Yeah.
like you said, it takes all real skill out of, I mean, not necessarily, I mean, you still got to make your shots and everything, but I mean, it kind of,
But you add a variable of chance and luck into it.
exactly. And that just, I mean, when you're talking a tournament of that, or a competition of that scale, it kind of ruins it a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, getting rid of the chance and the luck part of it.
Exactly.
No, again, you still have to make your shot, but the luck of getting the close range target, it doesn't mean you can't miss it. Just you're giving yourself a higher chance of making the shot.
Right.
I agree on that part. Again, I didn't shoot any of the stages. I kind of looked through and proved some of them, but I would probably say I love snake charmers, and Lewistown snake charmer is a blast. It's very thin. I really like their snake charmer target. I think that would have been a really fun one to shoot. And then also the one that I designed. I really wish I got to shoot that one. I designed stage 9 Wild West.
That one was
where
fun.
You had to shoot 5 different positions: strong side, then weak side, then train position, strong side, weak side, to 5 different targets. I really wish I would have shot that one. I really like the whole support side, and a lot of people don't. And I think it's something that a lot of us need to start practicing more on, is the support side shooting. And I mean, that's a lot of movement. I mean, 5 positions, 5 targets, and you're swapping strong side, support side every time you shoot the target.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a lot of movement for the time. So, but that's the one thing. I mean, a lot of people did say that our course fire was a little easy. I definitely think we changed some targets up due because of the weather, but I think we're gonna kind of go back to the original 2-minute time frame. I know a lot of us got pushed away from it. We started going like 2:30, 3 minutes. I mean, going to these national matches, almost every stage is 2 minutes, and I think that's kind of where we're gonna go back in that direction of going back to the 2-minute stages.
Yeah,
and focusing more on position building and work on your support side, smaller targets, and just start pushing our shooters more. Especially with this year, it's pretty much mostly the Montana clubs and a couple different South Dakota clubs, but the level of shooters next year, I will let you know, both is going to be a lot higher. And I'm not talking bad about any Montana shooters. It's just some of the South Dakota shooters are very, very good.
Yeah.
I know a lot of them personally, and they shoot a lot of national matches.
Well, there are also a lot.
We have
a lot of the national matches.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. But I mean, they get that. They have more options to shoot. I mean, there's a national match in South Dakota. There's multiple in Minnesota.
Yeah.
So they get. I mean, there's a lot more in that area, and they're not too far from all those, I guess, Midwest or central states.
Yeah.
So they can hit a lot more matches than we can, practice a lot more. So yeah, I think next year it's gonna be a lot. I think a lot more shooters will come to the championship, and I also think higher level of shooters will come.
Yeah.
And again, not talking bad about our shooters. We still have high level shooters, but for the overall, I think we're going to have a lot. So just getting the shooters ready for what next year will bring. I think as as of our championship match, we've decided is going to be in Billings next year.
Sweet.
I'll be the one hosting that and putting on the course fire for that one. We haven't decided. I would really like to do a 2-day match. I just don't know. With a 2-day match, typically they're more expensive because you're providing food 2 days, and it's 2 days for ROs and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I don't know if I really want to jump that high yet. I don't think. I mean, I think the championship this year was $80. I really don't want to have to double that. I don't think that's starting to get to like a high, NRL championship style. And I just don't think we're there, or I want to be there. Yeah. So I think we'll kind of keep it where it is, but just do a day match, maybe a little more stages. Maybe instead of 10, we do 13, 14, give a little more variety.
Yeah.
I think the day ran pretty quick. I mean, it wasn't that long of a day. I mean, we started at what, 9:30,
I think we
10 o'clock.
finally started shooting about 9:45 was when I think
Okay,
we started our first stage.
and
And
and then
yeah, I think we were
you
done
guys were
shooting,
done.
what, 3:30, 4 o'clock, somewhere in there.
I think earlier than that because I have a picture of me of all the pictures were taken, and there's a timestamp on one of them. I think it was toward like one of the last photos I took, and it was at 4:45, and that was at the very end. So I mean, and that was there after food, that was after awards, that was me taking a picture with people getting the prizes. So
Yeah,
um, yeah, I mean, I think it was close done around 3 if I'm not mistaken. And then obviously then
right.
trophies and all that stuff took to 4 something 5. But yeah, I definitely think with being in June again, he'll be in June next year. Um, sun stays up late, so
That's true.
we could even push it into the evening. So
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was good. The one thing as far as doing a longer match, I was getting pretty hungry by 3 o'clock. There's
yes,
that. So,
yes.
There was the
if we're gonna do something, a 15 stage or whatever, um, I'm all for it. I think that'd be a great one. But to have some kind of
intermission.
half hour, 45-minute break to get a sandwich down your throat or something. Mark was getting pretty cranky. He was getting hungry.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
About
so
stage 7 or
I-
8, everybody was kind of getting a little testy there, and definitely you could tell people were starting to get hungry and ready
yeah,
to get some food. Because I mean, that was
yep.
probably
No, I definitely
one
think. I
o'clock or
mean,
so.
you could. Yep, I get exactly. I mean, the last match I just shot in Minnesota, they actually did it where they brought people food throughout the day. So like
hmm
basically from they started like on stage 5 and worked their way around about halfway through the day, and they just brought out food, and they had these pre-packaged, not pre-packaged. I mean, they were fresh made food, but just packaged like in the little to-go boxes, and we're bringing them out to
Oh,
everyone.
okay.
And I think that would be kind of a cool idea. Again,
Yeah,
this match had probably close to 20 ROs and staff, so that's something I hope next year we had actually I didn't think we are gonna have as much ROs as we did this year. I think we had close to like probably 10, 11, around that. But next year I'm hoping we get quite a bit of ROs and staff to help with this event. So um, yeah, I was really happy with the outcome. Our sponsors were huge this year.
yeah, that was
I think
impressive.
everyone walked away at least twice off the praise table, if not, and I know like the third time people could just go and whatever was left they can grab.
Yeah.
What are you guys looking forward to for next season? I mean, are you guys think you just? I know you're both billing shooters. You guys gonna travel to any places or any other venues? Any big matches you guys want to go to next year?
I definitely want to do the Badlands Brawl this year because that's usually in September, right?
Yep, September 10th. Yep, up in Poplar. So
Yeah.
we're actually looking. Um, I was talking to some other people. We might get a big Airbnb out that direction, and I'll just stay at a big Airbnb out there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can get a huge. I mean, it wouldn't be in Poplar, it'd probably be in Sydney area,
Right.
um, but yeah, I mean, bunch of people in a huge house and go out there. Wayne Brown puts on that match, and it's definitely a really fun match. So, um, it would be a really cool one to go to. Any of the local, because I don't know if you guys saw, but we now have an Idaho club and just outside of Coeur d'Alene,
Right.
and we have now so we have Wyoming joined, or Sheridan Wyoming joined last season.
Yeah.
Anthony, I know you've been to one of those. We just picked up Black Hills, South Dakota,
I
or
did see
Oral,
that one.
South Dakota. So yeah, we're starting to. I think we have almost 10. We have 10.
Yeah, it should be 10
I
now
think
because
10 clubs now, and I think one more is joining in South Dakota. So we'll have 11.
oh,
So
nice.
it's getting up there. Matt, you
yeah.
think you're gonna travel any matches this year? Or you think just stay in the
I think
local
I might try to a little bit. I think I'll
within
definitely
day?
try to. I think I'll definitely try to be a little more diligent about making all the Billings matches. I missed half of them. I think just about last year. Um, so I think I'm definitely going to try a little bit harder than I have been. And then I work in Great Falls and stuff sometimes too. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna see if I can go hit one of those matches or something. Go stay an extra day and shoot with those guys and just try to rub some shoulders, try to see some different stuff. I never shot a snake charmer before, and I'm like asking Anthony like how to explain the course of fire to me, and he's like, shoot this snake charmer. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what am I supposed to be shooting? It's like,
what
shoot
exactly
the stick.
is the snake charmer?
There's
Like,
a
I don't
stick
get
in a
it.
bucket of water. Shoot the stick. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, easy. Come on.
I just didn't know. Like I'm looking way off in the distance. Like I had no idea what I was even looking for, and so there's some of that stuff that was super fun, and yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna go shoot with some of these other clubs and stuff if I get a chance, and definitely try a little harder to make all the Billings matches and do some of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a snake charmer in Billings, but ours was a little different. Ours is more of uh, a wider target, I would say.
Yeah, because ours is
but
what, 2 inches wide, about, or an inch and a half or so, something like that.
well, the first iteration of it was actually like if you look from the top, it was basically an X. So
Right.
when you look at the target, it's just a square, but it's kind of weird because it's 2 points sticking out. So you could hit, nick off it, kind of weird angles. We're remaking it currently, but yeah, Lewistown did a really good job with theirs, and but yeah, I love snake charmers. I think that's probably one of my favorite. That and I don't know if you ever seen a dancing diamond. That is hell. A dancing diamond is essentially a target hanging from a chain. It's a diamond hanging from a chain, and the top can spin, so you can hit that thing and the target starts bouncing around. Well, it might settle straight on at you, like flat, like sideways. So your target now becomes, sort of a 2-inch target becomes a 1/4-inch target. It's a bitch. They're really fun to shoot, but yeah, they bounce all over the place. It's very similar to a snake charmer, but I think a little bit harder. But yeah, I definitely also think for this next season, we're gonna start. I think we're gonna get some more props. Start building some more stuff. Like, I guess Lewistown didn't have a whole lot of what I'm trying to do, but like more of what the NRL does in some of these big matches, really have some really interesting props you got to shoot off of, and just things that a lot of you guys haven't seen.
Kind of like the cactus from Sheridan.
The cactus from Sheridan, something kind of similar to that. We're building something similar to that. At the Minnesota match I just went to, they had 4 pillars. I would say probably, let's just say, I don't want to over exaggerate, but let's say 50 yards across. So it's a pillar, just small little, like, 4-foot pillar, 3-foot pillar. And then the next one's about 10 yards away. Then the next one's 10 yards away. The next one's 10 yards away. The next one's 10 yards away. And you had to shoot these targets in front of you. So you had to shoot, the closest 2 to you, left, right. Well, then when you get to the next one, it's now target. So essentially there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So target 1, stage 1, you do 1 and 2. Target 2 or prop 2, you go 2 and 3. The next one you go 3 and 4 all crossed. When you get to the last one, you have to shoot 5 and 1. So now your holdover for the first one, you've moved 50 yards from that point. Right. So it changes, your angle changes, stuff like that. A lot of movement. I mean, we're not trying to do like, speed shooting type of thing, but just building and breaking the position, I think is crucial. I would love to get a cargo net in Billions. I don't think that'll ever happen, but cargo nets are so fun to shoot off, man. I don't know. Sheridan, I don't think you've ever been to a match, Anthony, that had one, but they've had a cargo net that is fun to shoot off of. I would really like to shoot off of that. So, are either of you coming to the Big Sky State Games?
Oh, I'll be there, and so will my wife.
That's right. How's your wife's gun running? I heard you bought her a Christensen Arms, right?
Yep. It's actually shooting really well, and she's shooting it pretty good too. We went out and did some of the stages that you have left set up from when you were practicing for that NRLX match, and I think the best she did was 7 out of 10, shooting 2 at each target. So it was,
it's just building positions, and that, you're talking about that off the tires.
Yep. Yeah, we were shooting off the tires.
That's a good one too.
It was her first experience of shooting and moving, and timed shooting and stuff like that. So it was kind of interesting for her, especially since she's 6 months pregnant, but no big deal.
Listen, we can get her a tire. I told this to Jake when his wife was pregnant. We can get her a tire. When she goes prone, you just put her belly in the middle of the tire. She's fine.
Exactly.
Just give some leverage there. You're good.
Exactly.
Actually, just tape the tire around her stomach at that point. Just put the tire straight and we'll tape it around her, and it's just always there protecting it.
Yes.
So, nope, but that's awesome. I'm glad both of you guys are coming to the Big Sky State games. For people listening, Montana does something called the Big Sky State Games every year. Essentially, what it is it's a match, or not a match. It's a competition. I don't know, organization, I guess.
Olympic style.
I don't know what you want to call it. It's Olympics, essentially, and it's for every sport. I mean, they have tons of events. I mean, they have I think even this year they have esports, they have archery, arm wrestling, badminton, basketball. I mean, track and field, tennis, soccer. They have tons of shooting events. I'm actually shooting in the one this weekend, the action sports shooting out at Blue Creek. That's really fun. I don't know if you guys ever done like a steel challenge type stuff, but it's a blast. I use my M&P 1522. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
But our event is the PRS 22, or your precision rimfire shooting event coming up, and it's on July 16th. It's going to be 6 stages. How they put on this is a little different. So the scores will count for the Pro Series for this match, but the Big Sky State Games does all the medals, so there'll be medals for. There's male and female categories for the following. There is a youth, which is 12 and under, juniors 13 to 18, adult 19 to 54, and then 55 or senior to 55 and on. So there's gonna be a lot of medals given out. Everyone gets a shirt if you've already signed up, and it's a lot of fun. It's a really good time. You don't just have to be from Montana. I think it's like Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming can all come out. It's a lot of fun. It's an all-day event, and so match is gonna be good. I'm doing the course of fire for that one. How'd you guys like the stage at the championship with the vitals? I know a lot of guys kind of complained about that stage because you couldn't really see clear impacts on vitals. What was your guys' opinion on that one?
So I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with that one. When we did it the month before for our club championship, I got 5 out of 10, but that was the one and only, other than the mover, which was actually pretty easy. It was the one and only stage that I cleared in the championship. And
you cleaned that?
Yeah, I cleaned it. It was a little frustrating, but it felt good that I shot better than Mark Pulver on a stage. But I was the only one all day to clean it. I asked the RO of the stage afterwards, and the next closest to me got 8 out of 10. I don't think there was any 9 out of 10s. I think it was just a bunch of 8s and then me at 10, which was really weird, but yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. Not so much, as far as the vital style targets go. To me, a target's a target. A lot of times we're shooting into grass. It's tough to spot misses on grass. Sometimes it's tough to spot misses on a vitals because the paint around the vital gets beat up. So that wasn't a huge deal to me one way or the other. But having the fence, which was kind of a man-made obstacle, and then the rock, which was more of a natural style obstacle. And it's real easy to run a fortune cookie style bag on the fence. But then you got to jump over here on this rock and figure out how to, lay on it, straddle it, whatever you're going to do, and to have that mixed in with a man-made obstacle. I like that. That was fun. I prefer, sometimes some of the natural obstacles, big logs and some of that stuff. I like shooting off of those.
Matt, you work for, aviation stuff. You should find like a wrecked airplane to donate to Blue Creek, and we can use that as a prop, or a helicopter.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty fun. I mean, even an actual helicopter, if you want, bring a helicopter out. Anthony, I know you work for the railroad. If you want to bring a train out, that'd be pretty fun as well.
There's not a whole lot of tracks out there. It'd be pretty difficult.
The train would be steady, that's for sure. It wouldn't move very much.
Yeah, it ain't moving anywhere.
Yeah.
Listen, take apart the whole train, rebuild it on site. We'll put a little track. We can drive it back and forth.
Yeah, totally. That wouldn't take, months at all.
And millions of dollars.
Right.
Trains are pretty cheap. Come on, guys. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they're so cheap. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But yeah, no. I think overall, what do you guys think? I mean, what would you guys rate the match overall? From just, I guess, 1 out of 10.
I'd say probably about an 8.5. I mean, it's not my favorite match that I've ever shot, but it had its own aspects of challenge to it and stuff. It was a lot of fun, and I think there's some things that could have been done better. But overall, I'd say probably 8.5 out of 10.
Matt?
Yeah, I'd say about that. I mean, it was obviously some of the targets got a little bit bigger than they needed to be because we thought there was weather going to come in. So there was some that should have been smaller. There was some of the stuff like having the really small targets at like 25 or 35 yards. I don't like those, not because it's just because I think they're a little bit irrelevant, I guess, for our class of shooter for the most part. Like putting a 1-inch target up at 35 yards is such a gimme.
Yeah.
There's some of those things. Like there was a
Speak
long
for yourself, all right? I
long
lost
range.
to you at a match with the little close range know your limits targets,
Yeah.
man.
Well,
I
that was
suck at
that was a know
tiny
your
one.
limits at like 70 yards or whatever. And
Yeah,
anything.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
There was the long range stage that had like a target at like 25 yards, and everything else was at like 4. And then there was one at 400.
Yep.
I don't love that style of stage because there's no way to spot misses at 400 yards with the 22. And
Well, even spotting impacts when you actually get one on the target, we were relying on the flasher at that point because
yeah,
your
you got a
bullet's hitting
flasher
so light
with
that it's not even knocking the paint off. I mean,
yeah. And it's not that I don't like a 400-yard target. I do. But I would prefer to have something a little bit closer to at least give you a general idea on the wind. I like a long range stage that you can build out to. If you have a target at 100 and
absolutely.
200 and 400, I like those because then you're not just making a cold wind call. And I don't run a Kestrel, and that was my worst stage, and basically it was just a flat out a wrong wind call that it was almost impossible to correct at that point. So that was the only real stage that I guess I had a problem with. So
Maybe you should get a Kestrel. I mean, Anthony has
Yeah,
one.
I mean,
there's
I have one
Anthony's
now.
got one now too. Well, I told him because he got such a swinging deal on that, and that I expect a free win call once per match from here on out. I get one win call once a match from now till eternity. So,
And I said that was fair. I
like-
completely understand.
Yeah.
I still can't believe you got lucky, and I mean the Kestrel you won by a vote, so that
Right.
was not a luck. You got voted on that, and that was, but the the 2 random draws you won both, and the best part is, I mean they were raffle style tickets. I
Yep.
shook the living shit out of that thing, and had this RO pull it blind to both times, just pulled it out. And both times I looking back, I wish I would have gave out the Kestrel first because it looks so bad. Just here's one prize. Oh, Anthony wins again. Oh, by the way, you also won the vote for the Kestrel.
Right.
Everyone, please don't hate me.
Right. I was afraid of getting mugged on my way out of the parking lot.
I'm surprised they didn't rob you on the way out of there.
Yeah.
Did you have to buy dinner on the way home?
No, me and Jake split it, but I mean, yeah, it was definitely one of those. Well, because I mean, he knows he's going to get to use everything that I won except for the suppressor and the mount. So I mean, the Kestrel and the tripod, he's probably going to get just as much use out of it as I am. So he wasn't as mad about those, but yeah, it was.
Yeah, because you end up walking away with the Leopold Mark V tripod kit, which that thing's a really nice tripod, and then you end up with the Thunder Beast suppressor,
$400 suppressor,
Thunder Beast 20. Yep, Thunder Beast 22 suppressor, and then the Kestrel 5700
Elite.
Elite Wide ballistics. Yeah, so
yeah.
We walked away with a nice little, and you still got to walk the prize table.
Yeah, and I still got to
So-
walk the prize table and pulled off a $300 American Rifle Company optics mount. So, you know, I did all right at the championship, I guess. I can't complain.
That mat paid for itself there.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So, Matt, question: how do you feel about walking the prize table when you did? So you finished 13th, but we did a different format this year where we went through, first an A, B, ladies, youth, and then, reset, second through them, third through them, then senior, top C. Then we went down the rest of the list. So how far down the line did you end up walking?
Oh, 30th, something like that, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I guess obviously I was a little outside the top 10, and then walked it, basically, in the second half. Yeah, a little bit of a bummer. Maybe that way. But also I'm a little biased, and I also understand as far as like, man, the ladies and the youth shooters and all of that, you've got to find a way to encourage that class of shooter. So I understand that as well.
Yeah, it's a tough subject.
Not quite as many, but at the same time, that's the shooters that you're really trying to encourage, to come through. So
no, exactly. That's the hard part. So that's when
I still did awesome, and so that's where it's like I was like, man, I had to wait a long time to go through that prize table, and had there maybe been, if it had been down to like a sticker and a piece of gum, maybe I would have been bummed. But that prize table was so stacked that at the end of the day, I got a $300 cert for for a bipod. I got a half off set of Hawkins rings, which was basically equivalent of another $75. Some MK machining, a grip, at the end. So I still came out of there with like $400 worth of gear. So I got no complaints. And that did, I was like, man, I mean, I would totally go shoot more large matches, and drive for some of these things, with price tables like this. And I'm like, man, that'd be worth driving across the state for. That'd be no.
So this is a subject that's been brought up, especially. So I went to a Minnesota match, the MPS match, and Ruth and Justin put on a phenomenal match and very stacked price table as well. I finished 27th, and I think I ended up walking. So how they did it was like the top spots, then like top of each division, because they have like open class, senior, ladies, stuff like that. And then I think they did. They went, what order you finished? So once they did all that, they did. So like, let's say that's down to 10th. So they called 10th a random RO, a random shooter, then 11th, then a random RO, random shooter, 12th, unless you've already been, called.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I ended up and I still walked away with a good cert. I'm not complaining what I got. I got a $325 cert to Valkortsen.
Nice.
But with that being said, I think I walked probably after 50. I would say maybe 50th.
Yeah.
And this, I shot with Mark Pulver because I didn't shoot with him, but he was at the match. He won first at that match.
Oh, shocking.
And then
shockingly,
actually, that was his first ever NRLX match he's won.
Oh, really?
Good for him.
Yeah, that was his first one. And then actually, the podcast was already recorded before this one, but it's going to be posted here after this one. But that I've recorded a podcast, a debrief podcast with those guys. It was Mark Pulver, Brody. Oh, geez, how do you say his last name? 1 second. Just want to give everyone's names right here. Brody Hetland, Mark Pulver, and Tyler Orth. We did a little podcast with them. Tyler Orth is the guy who got, I think, third place at the NRL championship this year.
Wow.
He ended up getting second place at this match, and then Mark Pulver, and then Brody finished, I think, in the top 10. All really good guys, but the conversation got brought up at that match was talking about, for these high-level shooters, if you don't finish in the top 3, you're walking pretty far down. Not pretty far, but you're not walking, if you don't finish in the top 3, you're probably walking like 15th, 16th down the line. Huh. And I can see how that can be a problem because again, you want to give people, you shooters, lady shooters who are coming out to these matches, that is some of the shooters, more people are trying to get into this sport.
Right.
But yeah, I can kind of see what I could see why people get angry about it. They're like, look, I finished 5th or 4th and now I walked 15th. Or if I finished 3rd, I would have walked 3rd.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So I can definitely see that style. And I think, maybe for next year we might just do it in the order you finished. But then on the second go around, either reverse the order so that the first guy, he got the best prize or whatever, hit first dibs on the prize.
Right.
But once you get down to the 50th shooter, then 50th gets a walk again, and then you go back. So then maybe you might get a high value on the first time, but not so high value on the second time. But
yeah,
I don't know. There's definitely something that was brought up. Even I wasn't talking to them, but I saw Ruth and Justin, the match directors, talking about it, and it's a hard topic, a very sensitive subject, because how do you do it fairly? Like, you don't want to hurt the guys who are putting all their money in this to win the cool prizes, but also you don't want them to just get all the nice prizes and then maybe turn around and sell it. So
exactly,
there has to be that in between line. Exactly. So it's a hard middle ground. It's hard to find. So.
There's definitely, like you say, I mean, like as far as where you're trying to get gear to, generally the bottom half of your shooters, well, maybe they're a little more budgetly minded sometimes, so you're trying to throw some certs their way and some gear their way to, spruce up their stuff. But then you've also got some guys that are putting some big money behind it, and they're going, hey, I'm the one that's going to, 25 matches a year, and really put a lot of effort and supporting this sport and driving it forward. So, yeah, it's a balance there for sure.
Yeah. Well, and then like,
what you guys think of the shirt? Oh,
go ahead. Like my younger brother-in-law, Brody, he's 14, about to be 15, and he's running a setup that I think we've put a total of $600 or $700 into between rifle, scope, and rings. I mean, he's got a super budget setup, and he ended up with a 30% off from Euro Optic for Vortex Optics, which is still pretty good, but for somebody like him, I mean, that was about the best value for him. And I mean, he's not even old enough to have a job yet, so he's kind of like, well, I just got to rely on birthday money to, actually be able to use this cert. So it more or less isn't really that much of a value to him. So it kind of, it's kind of hard. I mean, he ended up, I think he was like 40th or something like that. So I think he ended up walking, he was one of the last people to walk the table. So it kind of, it was one of those, it was kind of disheartening for him, because he's like, there's a lot of cool stuff on the table, but I'm not going to really get any of it, because he ended up.
Yeah, like he might get something cool, but he's not getting something that's free. He might have to pay for it, so he kind of miss out on all the free stuff.
Right.
Now there's only certs left that are % off certs, and now, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and for the youth people,
there's definitely
it kind of,
to look at it.
I mean, it kind of sucks for that aspect of it, because, they're the ones that don't have jobs yet, and they're basically doing this off of whoever else is paying for it. So it's kind of.
Well, some youth. I mean, there's other youth that have $3,000 DCO optics, and there's other youth that have full rigs that their parents built.
Yeah.
So it's a case by case situation.
And it's kind of one of those things that he's one of those shooters that, I mean, he still did really well, all things considered, but I mean, he didn't really get a walk away with a whole lot. But
yeah, I can see that. What you guys think of the shirts? I saw some other people had mentioned that maybe next year. So I don't know if you guys know, but shirts are basically, you pay more for more colors you have.
Right.
Some people were talking about maybe just doing a solid, just white ink shirt, but throw all the sponsors on there. A lot of guys like shirts that have all the sponsors on there to kind of just show off the sponsors. What do you think about that? You guys think the shirts just show the Pro Series was cool, or do you think you'd rather have a shirt that, showed off all the sponsors for that match?
I thought the shirt was cool, but I could definitely see throwing sponsors on a shirt, just like to try to keep these guys coming back and supporting what we're doing. To have a relationship there that goes both ways as best as possible. I'd be totally cool with having a sponsor list on a shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like maybe doing a smaller Pro Series logo on the back and then just doing like a list of them on the back would be pretty awesome.
Yep. A good example, there's a shooting league, the VIA or VOD Tactical Rimfire. They're an outlaw series, I think in North Carolina on the East Coast. Their championship's coming up here, and I saw a picture of their shirt. It's actually pretty cool. So it's small little, logo on the front, has like American flag on the shoulder. And on the back, across the back, big letters, it has, their name of the VOD Tactical Rimfire series, has their logo, and then below that says presented by. It has a list, and it's just all of the sponsor logos for the series, and it looks pretty cool. But it's a black shirt with white ink, but it just looks pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be something we might be looking at next year, because that's something some people have asked before too, like, well, why was the match $80? Well, you got food, there's all the trophies that went into this. There's, everyone gets a shirt. Shirts are like, 20, 30, $25, $20 per person. Because, we're ordered, I guess this year we got a little bit of a deal because we ordered more shirts. But I mean, if you're not ordering like over 100 shirts, you're really not getting a crazy discount. So just stuff like that, people don't realize the cost that goes into putting into a match. But I think overall, I mean, the match was 80 for adults, 60 for youth, and I think everyone walked away with at least their money back, I feel, but hopefully.
Yeah.
That was kind of the goal.
Yeah, I mean, it also kind of depends on how you use some of those certs and stuff too, like that Vortex cert from Euro Optic. I mean, if you buy something little, I mean, you're not really getting a whole lot for it, but if you go out and buy a high-end scope, I mean, you can get as much off as like $1,200. I mean, it's just all in how you use some of those.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I definitely think everybody walked away with their money back for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, you got a shirt, you got lunch, you got to shoot a match, and at least 2 prizes.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know definitely some people walked away with a lot, Anthony.
Yeah,
but yeah, well, cool. Well, I'm glad both of you guys enjoy yourselves, and again, there's always room for improvement. And I think next year, just work on what we heard from last year and just make it better. I mean, there's nothing wrong with trying to make it better. So, other than that, thank you both. Anything else you guys wanted to say or anything like that?
Other than thank you to everybody who helped bring that all together. I mean, I know you and Devin did a ton of work on the sponsors, and I know some other people did too. But I mean, even the ROs that came out, I can't say it enough. Thank you so much. I mean, it was a ton of fun, and I mean, obviously, I walked away pretty happy. But I mean, it was a ton of fun, and it wouldn't have happened without all the people that helped. So I just can't thank you enough.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, I've had a great time over the last year trying to learn how to do some of this stuff and shoot with some new guys, and making a few friends along the way, and really opened my eyes to what precision rifle is capable of. With what a 22 is. I mean, man, a year and a half ago, I would have never thought that that you could put 6-inch groups at 300 yards with a 22, and so I've had a fantastic time, and I've learned more in the last year about shooting than in the decade prior. So I
remember
awesome.
You came out to your first match just to watch, and we said no. You're shooting. You threw a gun in your hand, and you got to shoot. And yeah, I mean, you've been back quite a bit since, and yeah, it's I 100% agree. I mean, I didn't start shooting in general till probably a little over 2 years ago, and I've learned more. Well, obviously, I've learned more in the last 2 years because I started shooting a couple years or 2 years plus years ago. But yeah, I mean, I think getting into this precision stuff, I've learned a lot about shooting, and I've learned that gear does not make you better. It may help, but it doesn't make you better. You have to actually put in the time and the practice.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, just looking at Matt, I mean, you're a heck of a shooter, and you've won matches before and you're using a little 10-20. Actually, that's one thing I guess we should have said at the beginning. What gear are you both running, real quick, Matt? You want to start that off?
So My rifle started out as a $250 Ruger 1022 my dad gave me like 10 years ago. I went out and to guess full backstory, one of the guys that I played a little softball with asked me to, if I was interested, wanted to come out and shoot a match. And I said, oh, I'll come out and watch one, and I didn't really know what I was getting into, so I didn't want to commit. And you guys made me shoot. Um, I didn't have my rifle with me. I think I shot the Brigera equivalent to the 1022. And I was impressed. Like, wow, these shoot better than I thought they were capable of. Had some fun. Um, Kind of went back to the drawing board with my rifle, and I decided, well, I'm just gonna run this 1022 as long as it'll take me. Um, so it first thing happened, I think the trigger went off to Brimstone back when those guys still did trigger work on 1022s. It got the cheapest trigger job that they did. It was like $40. Um, I threw it in a Magpul stock, which was $75. And then I had a set of rings laying around. I think I ordered a 20 MOA rail. I had one of the old Strike Eagles, 4 to 24 second focal plane in MOA. And so I had to crank between every target because the holdovers only worked at 24 power, which was way too much for what we were doing. I think the first match I shot with that was last year's uh, whatever Montana State Games match, and I think I did like second in base class or something with it, and that was fun. And I was like, all right, let's figure this thing out. And since then, I did put the Ruger target barrel, their cheapest one, that was like $100, and mostly that balanced the rifle. And that's what I guess one of the things I've learned along the way too is it's not just about a rifle that shoots teeny tiny groups, but being able to shoot small groups positionally. And the balance of the rifle makes a huge difference. And so it didn't really tighten up the groups very much. It'll shoot about a half inch at 50 yards, but it balances the rifle well. Um, Ended up putting a Diamondback tack 6 to 24 on top to go to first focal plane. You know, Learned how to run a first focal plane and bought that in mil radians to learn how to speak that language a little bit. Um, and then right now it's got a Magpul bipod on it, and and then I did swap out the original 20 MO rail down to a 40 MOA rail to get as much out of the Diamondback tack as I could. And it's not a perfect rifle by any stretch, but really for most of what we're doing, it actually does pretty well. It's never the rifle, you know. And then I started shooting, better ammunition through Lapua Center X or Ely Match, and that's the biggest improvement in accuracy that I saw
Mm-hmm.
of everything that I've done was going to just feeding it better stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's kind of where I'm at with the rifle. And if I was going to go back and do things again, maybe I would have bought a kid barrel instead of the cheap Ruger barrel. And maybe should have put a better trigger in it the first time and a few things. There's always things you learn. Um, but all in all, I'm still, this side of $1,000 into that rifle and optic, I think. So, I've had a great time with it, and I'll probably continue to shoot that rifle probably for another year before I decide to do something different and either go to a CZ or Bergera or something like that. But um, yeah.
And then Anthony, what were you running?
I'm running the Ruger RPR, Ruger Precision Rimfire. Now with a Vortex Strike Eagle on it, 5 to 25. But for the first year of its life, it wore the Diamondback Tactical 6 to 24. And for the money, you can't really beat that scope. I mean, clicks are a little mushy, glass isn't as clear, but I mean, for $300-400, they're pretty awesome for what they are. And I actually couldn't even zero my scope at 50 yards because the Ruger RPR comes with the 30 MOA rail on it. So I was zeroed at 75 yards for the first probably 6 months that I did this. And then I ended up putting a muzzle brake on it, and it changed my point of impact just enough to where I could zero it at 50 yards. And I think I had 1 or 2 clicks below zeroing it at 50 that I could go with that Diamondback Tactical. Um, but honestly, it's a great rifle for the money. It's an entry level. It's only $500, but I mean, it definitely will compete. And like Matt said, it's all in what you feed it. I shot my first match using SK Standard Plus, and then used rifle match for quite a while, and then I started shooting Center X a couple months ago. And shooting Center X out of that gun, it averages probably about 3/8 of an inch at 50 yards, and Standard Plus is probably closer to 3/4 of an inch, maybe 5/8 if I do everything just right. But I mean, it shoots well, and like we've said several times, it's not the gear, it's definitely the shooter. But I mean, it does help sometimes having better gear. But
It definitely Matt brought up a really good
Yeah.
point too with talking about the balance. Balance is so crucial. I
oh,
mean,
huge.
I'm running a Bergara B14R, and I'm actually considering buying having AEM precision. Probably end up getting either a Krieger or a Lilja barrel, and having AEM precision get it all ready for me, and throw that on my Bergara. And not saying the Bergara barrel is bad; it actually shoots really well. It just doesn't balance. It's not front heavy. It's an 18-inch barrel, and is not front heavy at all. So my gun is very rear heavy, and having a balanced rifle helps so much.
Yes.
So yeah, that is a big
Mhm.
thing that I'm looking to do, and is maybe swapping a barrel out. And again, I don't think I'm gonna get better groups that much, but it definitely will help with the balancing, and that's kind of my goal, to get a nice balanced rifle.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but yeah,
that's the only issue I have with my RPR right now, is being able to completely balance it out, because there's not a whole lot that I can do to it. There's not a whole lot of aftermarket for it, so it's kind of hit and miss. I've been playing around with a bunch of different stuff. I actually have the um, Area 419 tunable weight system coming in for it. It'll be here on Monday, so I'll be adding some more weight that way, and trying to tune the weight on that, and trying to balance it
well,
out.
if either of you have $1,900 laying around, I have a buddy selling a Voodoo barrel action with two mags. But hey, it's fine if you both want us to keep using the guns you have. It's
I
fine.
mean, if I'm
Nothing
if
wrong
I'm
with
gonna
that.
go that route, I'm probably gonna end up going Rimex with
Yeah.
a proof barrel. But you know,
No, no, that's totally fine. I'm just saying,
yeah,
it's he offered it, if I wanted to purchase it, and I like Voodoo. I like Rimex. I've heard the problems about the Voodoo, and I've heard the problems about the Rimex, and I feel like every gun's gonna have an issue. I don't know. I think I've got my Bergara exactly where I want it, and I don't see the need to change. Again, the only thing I would change is maybe my barrel to get some more weight, but other than that, yeah, Matt, you
Yeah,
said something about
I've
the
shot that
CZ.
rifle. I've shot that rifle. I shot CZ 457. I've been, anytime somebody's got a rifle that I'm like, hey, can I shoot that? And that's the cool thing about this is ammo's cheap.
yeah,
Barrel
exactly.
life is pretty much infinite, so you can grab somebody else's rifle for the most part and try some stuff out. And what I've noticed is picking up other people's rifles. Man, the first thing I notice is balance, and then the second thing is trigger weight. So like a factory 457 with a 16-inch barrel on it, they shoot lights out. They shoot super tight, but the factory triggers are pretty heavy, and the
Yep.
barrels I think is 16 and a half, and so they tend to be very tail heavy. And I struggle with a factory 457, um, in something positional. If you can get a rear bag under it, then man, they're sweet. So there's some of those things that now I'm like, well, shoot, if I pick up a rifle when I'm at Shields or something, first thing even before I run the action, I want to see where the thing balances. So it does change what you're looking at,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
you know, and I've shot like that Bergara, man, trigger on it's great. Um, the chassis that it's in is great. The glass is great. But I remember I was screwing around with it off a tank trap, and I was like, "Oh wow, like this is just got a little
Yep.
bit more in the tail on it than my $500 Ruger does, just
Hmm.
because that Ruger's got a 20-inch barrel on it instead of the 18 on that Bergara, and then that MDT chassis tends to be a little bit tail heavy too. So yeah,
No, no, you're 100% right. So,
so
Actually, I still love my for my CZ 455, but like you're saying with that 457, they actually make I think it's like $1,600, but they make a CZ 457 with a MTR essentially bull barrel on there, and thing balance is great. And honestly, I love my Bergara, but I still would tell any shooter getting this that a CZ is 457 is going to have less problems, great right out of the box. You can contact Lilja and get a barrel for that thing, and the Lilja's barrels make those CZ47 shoot even better. And you could be running, a way cheaper setup than a guy running a Bergara or a Kona rifle. Timney makes a trigger for the CZ now.
Yep.
And thing shoots lights out. So, I mean, you can get that CZ pretty dang where you want it. The only thing is, why the differences between the Bergara and the Voodoo and Remix and the CZ is CZ only fits the CZ, the parts for it, where the other guns are all Remington 700. So now you can swap your parts out for your centerfire rigs.
Right.
But, buy once, have that part, swap it out to, your other rigs, which is nice. But with that being said, they're more expensive. I think like my trigger was like $300, $300+ where a Timney CZ 457 trigger, it's like $150, but you only could use it for that gun.
Yeah.
So there's pros and cons to both of it, or both of them. But yeah, no, I think if anyone getting into the sport wanted to get a gun that's good right out of the box, CZ47, I would recommend every day of the week over any other gun. I mean, I love my Bergara. I'll keep shooting my Bergara. But CZ, man, just shoots lights out right out of the box. So does Bergara too, but I don't know. CZ has always had a place in my heart, man. That's my first 22, my CZ 455, and I still love that gun. That one had a 22 inch. It has a long barrel on it. My original CZ, so it's a fun gun.
But, yeah, they do like to do the 24-inch barrels, but I mean it works for them, so you can't really say anything.
Yeah. But we should have done this whole thing at the beginning. Sorry about that, guys, if you're listening to this. So yeah, we should have talked to Gear at the beginning to at least get a gist of what these guys were shooting. Because yeah, their group they shot, or the group they were in at the championship match, I mean, everyone in that group was running probably $3,000+ setups.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I know Nick Gebhardt, he had a Rimex, and
yep. His son probably had the cheapest build under that, and that was the CZ4, or not the CZ, the 1022.
Right.
But with that being said, he still had a $3,000 ZCO on there.
Exactly.
Mark Pulver is running, Kronos and Bergara, and then Manor Stock, and then I think
Mark
I don't know exactly.
I'm pretty sure he was running.
He's using an MPA, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's Voodoo, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. I know his Kevin Flotmeyer, his uncle, runs a Voodoo, so I'm assuming he might, but we lost Anthony. Well, anyways, I think we've pushed this podcast a little longer than I thought, but thank you, Matt, for being in here. Anthony, he's gone now. He just texted me, his wife's phone died, but thank you guys both for being in here, and hopefully we see you guys next year.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Shane.
See you, Matt.